Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of the Bloody Legends with Jai, That Aussie Metal Guy, and Jim Taylor. Make sure you're a bloody legend and hit that like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all the great content from these bloody legends. G'day, how you all going? It's Jai, That Aussie Metal Guy here, and tonight, wherever you are in the world, I do have my ever reliable co-host and partner in crime, Jim Taylor from the Bloody Legends, and the absolute legend that we're getting to have a chat with again, that I'm getting to have another chat with, is Mr. Al Anderson, who's due to hit Australian shores on November with the original Wailers, with an absolutely huge career spanning decades, a legacy intertwined with not only Bob Marley, but a whole bunch of other great artists, including Peter Tosh. Al Anderson has definitely been a pivotal figure in reggae music, but started in rock and roll, and he is gearing up to come to the Australian shores, as I just mentioned. So let's dive into it. Al, how have you been, my friend?
Man, it's good to see you. We're doing all right over here.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
how has the last year been for you since we spoke? What's been happening in your world there musically?
We're trying to still get the album completed. And you know how finishing an album is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But we're on our way. We have about 5, 6 more tracks to do, and Mirror of Heaven will be complete package. We're ready to give it to the people because we've just been waiting for years, man, because we tour as much as we can possibly tour, and we save as much as we can save and put back into recording. And it's not cheap these days.
Yes, sir.
There's cheap roads to go down, but we want to do it properly and give the people what they deserve, the right sound and the right images. So it's taken a little more time than we expected, but we should be on track by the new year with a new album, Mirror of Heaven.
So tell me a little bit about the songwriting process for this album.
Well, we started like 3, 4 years ago writing songs. And so it took us, we've completed 3 complete tracks, written, produced by myself and the lads. And songwriting is Chet Samuel and myself. And so we just get in the studio and just hash out ideas, and we just go for it. And we get the right take, and we just continue from there until it's completed. So we've done Song of the Divine with the video in Bali, which was really beautiful. One of our more spiritual moments of life, when the priest of the Balinesian priest invited us to a Buddhist temple where we could do some recording of a video while they were blessing us with elders, and a lot of really heavy high priests gave us some very spiritual coconut water and flowers. And man, it was just a blessing to be there for the whole day. So we completed the video there. We synced everything up. And then the second song that was released was Si Tu Me Lo Das, which is in Espanol. And it's a love song. And our third, which we're going to release very shortly, as kind of a teaser of where the direction we're going in, is Pierda por Pierda, which means brick by brick.
Or brick.
Yeah. Brick by brick, stone by stone, we build our world back together.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Hopefully we can really manifest all of it, of which I just said.
So at this point, like, the album has taken a little bit to get out. Are you like, man, I just really want to have this out? Because it'd be different now making an album compared to when you were making an album back, with Peter Tosh and Bob Marley, you know what I mean?
Wow.
You just kind of get into the studio, you're all going to get together, compared to now where the whole process has changed and a hell of a lot different than then and now, yeah?
Yeah, most definitely.
Wow.
We're not 100% up on all of the technology of the digital world. We try to incorporate the analog processing with the digital mastering and stuff, and it comes out for us. It comes out the way it does, and we're well pleased with that, because there's a lot of studios in Florida where I am, and there's a bunch of studios in LA. And I kind of like recording um, in LA because they've got Rob Delgado has the Academy of Arts that he represents. He's a managing director of the Los Angeles Academy of Recording. And so I've done a lot of stuff with him and Greg Worth. And Greg, he's a brainiac. He builds compressors and he knows all about signal processing. And he's like Steve Vai's like number one guy when it comes to mixing his guitar
Wow.
sound. So I get lucky when it comes to he understands reggae and he understands the sound of a loud guitar, how to really get it mixed where it makes sense. And with the guys we have, Adrian Cisneros, myself, Chet Samuel, Papa Nyako on drums from Ghana, Omar Lopez
Wow.
on bass. He's from Mexico, and Ross Clamper is from Jamaica. So we got like a United Nations cultural sound machine that it goes from Jamaica to Africa
Man,
to to Mexico to America and Puerto Rico. So we got a
you
really defined sound now that I think people are going to like the direction we're going in. And we're not only singing in English, we're singing into Espanol, where there's a whole another
wow.
billions of people that can comprehend what we're doing because it's just part of the the real our real life. Our everyday is like with Chet. Chet's Puerto Rican and Omar is from Mexico. So we hear Spanish constantly. So it is
Wow.
there's nothing I felt there was nothing wrong with connecting to the people of their natural tongue. And we'll get some more friends and some more fans and try to just build this thing Pierda por Pierda, you know.
That is such a beautiful title. Like you guys have created like you guys are like the Raga Eagles. Like you have so many different personalities and styles.
Yes.
That,
That's
you know what I
that
mean?
yeah. That's you touched on a good point. And it has a lot to do with where we're all from. I
Yeah.
grew up with like a jazz blues, rock,
Yeah.
experimental, ambient background with hip hop coming into from Jamaica into the States, where all the Caribbean artists that were living in America decided to, just get their sound systems and make that change of sound that was going on with disco and all that. They just bam, next minute, here's hip hop and it's
Right.
blazing. And so we were able to have something to do with that, being that some of our, me spending so much time in Jamaica and just working with so many incredible Jamaican artists, that it's just
Yeah.
kind of, it's part of everything that is inside of the music.
What influenced you as a guitar player? Because you have a very unique style. You actually and much respect to Sensei Seagal. You played on, if I'm not incorrect, on Songs from the Crystal Cave
Yeah, I
with
did.
Steven Seagal. What was that
Yeah.
like? Because that's a banging record, dude. I gotta say. I hope people they know Steven for Marked for Death and for Under Siege. But
Yeah.
it seemed like what was like he seemed very soulful as a musician. What was that like working with him?
I was pretty much living with him during the Songs of Crystal Cave. We
Oh
were in
wow.
Thailand. We were all over the place, Nashville recording. It was kind of like
Yeah.
a world album, wherever we could find a good studio where we were while he was doing his movie productions. Steven's been a great
Okay.
fan of mine from like I've known him for like nearly 45 years, close to 50 years.
Wow.
He taught me martial arts and introduced me to Buddhism way
Wow.
back in like mid 70s, early 70s. And he was just a big influence on me because he was so strong-minded. When he put his mind to
Right.
something, and he could
Yeah.
manifest. Um, a lot of guys take punches at him, but his music skills are a lot better than people could imagine for a lot of
I I always
people.
wanted to talk to all of you guys that were involved with that record because that was for me, I listened to that as a keyboard player And I
Yeah.
was like, man, there are so many levels on this. And people, like, I did not, but like people laughed him off. They're like, really? And I was like, dude, he's a banging musician, dude.
Yeah, he
And
really killed that record because yeah, we were challenging him a lot. It was like, what do you think of that track?
cool.
Oh, you can do better. He goes, what do you mean I can do better? I said, yeah, you can. And so he'd come back with better licks and better tracks. And he wrote most of the album is written by
Wow.
him, and produced by Tyrone Downey, myself, and Steven. Uh,
Cool.
he was executive producer. We were in Thailand doing a video for Girl It's All Right, one of my
Oh yeah,
favorites.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Great song.
And the whole album is just, for me, one of the great albums that, I always do a lot of recordings that people don't, it's not getting like national recognition, or
No,
international.
you do it because you're passionate about it.
Yeah, I love, exactly. Yeah, you
Yes,
know
sir.
the vibe. So I heard the music, I heard what his direction was going in, and
Yeah.
it's kind of country, but he's also got some dance hall with Lady Saw
Yeah. Lady
on
Saw
there.
is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he got some rock steady, and he's got some hard steppers. He's got some country. He's got some rock. He's got some
Mhm.
alternative rock. So, "Song from the Crystal Cave" is something that people should take an ear listen to, and there's some really beautiful songs on that record. One of my favorites.
And you're playing. Jai, I was gonna say, jump in here, brother. I was like, I don't want to dominate here. I feel weird.
No, you're good. I
Like,
do want to talk classic albums though,
yeah,
as the
dude,
legalizer
absolutely,
and equal rights. Peter Tosh, I recently had a listen to them again. Absolutely
Wow.
great albums and still kind of stand the test of time, which I kind of did touch
absolutely.
on before. What's it like looking back at these albums as well that you worked on?
Because well, the history of Peter is incredible. How I journeyed away from Bob to do Word Sound and Power with Rob and Sly and Peter Tosh. It was a big move for me. There was a lot of political unrest in Jamaica. They were counting on Bob being the person who's going to steal the presidency away from whoever was prime minister. And
Mm,
so it became really congested to the point where his management wasn't good enough to have anything
mm,
to do with this kind of artist. Don Taylor did I think he did
dude,
his thing. He did a good job. But Bob really needed some top level guy that had a lot more empathy for Bob's movement and the band that represent the music. Um, Peter was just a completely different, but the same person as Bob, but different. And that may sound kind of counter active, as you would think like they're the same, but they're different. Yeah, they're different. They're different attitude and different moods when they're recording and just when they're being themselves. And so, being the one I left, Bob, I saw Peter as somebody who was really strong-minded, and he
mm,
was the first marijuana activist who suffered the consequences of trying to get herb legalized in, Jamaica in the Western Hemisphere. He was one of the first. And man, they beat him up. He'd smoke in the middle of the street down at Lady Musgrave. He always used to
mm,
park around there where near Aquarius. And then there was like all these police officers would come up and threaten him because they could smell the herb. But he wanted them to know that it should be free.
Oh yeah.
But that's not how the legal system is in Jamaica. They were really hard on herb during this time. And so
huh.
Peter was like, he was like the first marijuana activist that I knew of outside of the hippies and Haight-Ashbury and the Grateful Dead and all those people, that felt that marijuana should be free and legalized. And so he promoted that to the heart. He wrote songs about it. He got beat up. He was jailed. They gave him
Wow.
like one police officer walked up. I was standing right next to him. He was smoking. I said, Peter, this guy's going to arrest you. And the guy came up with a baton and grabbed his hand where he had his joint. And then there was ashes flying all over the place. And then the guy felt insulted. and literally crowned him with like 40 stitches in his head and had to take him to the hospital and get some stitching to bring back what this guy
Jesus.
had completely damaged. So he suffered the consequences for his reality. And that's what I always liked about Peter. He was real with his music. He was real with us. He was different from Bob. It was a different thing. Bob had more of us where we were so concentrated. Everyone's concentrating on his songwriting and what
Yeah.
we were going to produce for his writing. And Peter with Robbie and Sly, it was like it was a lot more elementary because Robbie and Sly have done, more sessions than I think anybody. They're like in the Guinness World Book of Records for the most sessions ever done by any group of musicians in the world. Like, I mean, like a million sessions, believe it or not, over the span of 50 years or so. And so Word, Sound, and Power, working with Peter Tosh was, and then we did Equal Rights, where he was getting a lot more political. And it was just, he was talking about justice in Africa, coming together. And, I had a really great time working with Peter Tosh. He was fabulous, man. And Bob too. They were just different. They
Well,
had different ideologies and
he
different
laid the
focus.
groundwork. He was one of those people, as you mentioned, like not only through his music, but he had a message as well. And through those messages, even that Legalized it album, people like myself, that was instrumental going through cancer treatment. I had it medically approved. It was,
Wow.
I was using the indica, the sativa, I had oils, a high spectrum CBD. So rest in peace, Peter Tosh. He would be looking
Wow.
down kind of proud. He was one of the people that kind of did lay the groundwork as for other people to kind of step in. I was listening to something about somebody
Absolutely.
saying it was they were talking about Chrissy Amphlett and what she done laying because being a woman in the rock industry here in Australia was hard, but she was talking about laying the footprint down so the next person that walked through it wouldn't have such a hard time going through, and it gets easier for each person as well. And that's probably something you've felt and you've managed to do in your career as well, yeah?
If something that I was related to, it was all there. You got it. You said very well said, my friend.
It is. And do you look back at your career and what are some of the challenges you've felt that you've had to really overcome to kind of get where you are and kind of maintain that legacy that you have now?
Really bad accountants, bad lawyers, bad record companies, bad CEOs, the whole taking advantage of the musicians' rights and ability to stand up for them. And that was the worst part. The creative part was just that was just natural being. You're in a room with Robbie and Sly. You're in a room with Carlton Barrett, Aston Barrett, Tyrone Downey, and Wire Lindo and Bob Marley. And then you're in the studio with Dennis Brown and, Chinna and all these fabulous, incredible Jamaican musicians. So it was just every single day was an adventure because when I first got to Jamaica, it took a long time for them to release the Nazi Dread album, which was quintessential success for Bob and us as a production team and his songwriting. And being that it was being released on Island Records, it was going to get like reasonable publicity. But the as things started to really happen for Peter as well, when I had the opportunity to introduce Peter to Ronnie Wood, Keith Richards, and Mick,
Oh, nice.
because we used to go to a place called my father's place. Epi Epstein owned a really nice place out in Long Island where all the stars used to go and hear all the reggae artists from Alton Ellis, Dennis Brown, you name it. They had all these incredible young and vintage artists playing in Long Island. So a lot of
Huh.
the people in the entertainment business were going to this club and taking in like real roots rock reggae right there in New York. So for me, it just was having so many great opportunities to be on stage with so many great Jamaican artists and so on, is
Yeah.
that it's always the same thing. they never had their rights looked after. The Jamaican in Jamaica, the Performing Rights Society doesn't look after their vintage musicians and the new ones. Like I think the dance hall artists are the ones that are reaping what they're sowing, like Beanie Man and Vibes Cartel
Oh
and
yeah.
Ninja, and these guys are getting paid. You
Uh,
know, these DJs are really getting the money that they're commanding. Because back in the 70s when we were recording, everybody was taking advantage of everything. They was taking the music from Jamaica, bringing it to England, cutting deals with distributors, and not giving the artist his just dues, like his royalties and his publishing and control over his image. And that's just from really bad management, bad lawyers, bad accountants. And I think young artists that are really good today, they really have to look at the law that governs the fact that they deserve their royalty. They deserve, if not all of their merchandise. They are the executive producers because they paid the money. Because a lot of record people decide that if you don't know what you're doing, they're going to teach you. They're going to cheat you out of, you're going to learn by getting cheated out of all your rights. And who knows, after your first successful album, because of such bad management and bad lawyers, bad accountants, um, your career becomes to halt. It's like a red light. So by having good management, like premier management where guys can talk to you and make you understand, hey, this belongs to you, and you have to share this to get to X, Y, Z, because it's the music business is it's all digital, it's all online. It's all you have to be like a mathematician to figure out how to really sell records today and have really big backing. Look at Taylor Swift. And artists like Mayer, just huge. How do you put all that together? How do you get so connected to banking and record distributors and major labels and stuff? You got to have something really going for you. And I think a lot of it is your representation. People that represent you say the good and intelligent things to their artists, and then the artist follows through with their guidance from lawyers, from personal management. So that gives you all the right to win when if you don't take advantage of the rights that you do own, you will suffer the consequences.
Oh, most definitely. And I think you touched on an interesting point. Like I've gone on it a few times about how the streaming cycles and the industry was, but the music industry, it seems like there's always been someone, unfortunately, beating on our artists. That's why supporting your artists and, like you mentioned, having good legal representation and knowing your product as you begin. And that's some great advice for artists starting out in the scene. But the music industry, it seems, has kind of always been broken in some sense. And I think somehow there's got to be government intervention in all of this. It just seems kind of sad that all these fucking years, ever since you first started, that somebody's been able to take advantage of our arts industry. It's really sad, and it's still continuing now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we've got the streaming cycles and it's great to see, but it's hard because people aren't buying as much albums as they bloody used to. You know what I mean? So more and more, as you did touch on, you got to be playing all over the bloody place, get your music out, and then go back into the studio, make your music, and have control over your music a lot more. It's amazing. It's crazy, actually.
Absolutely. It's very complicated because you can see the artists that are winning this thing.
Yeah.
They're out there and they're being represented by AEG, Live Nations. I got lucky. I've never had the management I thought that I deserved and would, really go the mile for me. And I met a gentleman in Jupiter, Florida. His name is Robert Duderman, and he does Duderman Productions. He's part of the Ineffable group. Ineffable Records is Cats and who's the other fella? Thomas Cousin and Igor Katz is the executive
Oh,
part of Ineffable, and Robbie is Robbie Duderman Productions is our personal. And so by
Yeah.
having these two really big, strong muscles, it's kept us on the road, and we believe in what we're doing in-house with our management and our executive management, and we have Ira Goldman from Wasserman and Wasserman, and I think Sarah Bullwinkle, and they have artists like Billie Eilish and stuff. We're in the same office as them. So I feel like for all the years I've been doing this, I finally have found a personal manager and an executive management company that can take interest in our careers to get our music out there, keep us on the road. Because I don't know if you've noticed or not, there's a lot of Wailers and tribute to Bob Marley
I
groups.
know.
Yeah.
And it's really starting to get on my fucking corn, man.
Yep.
It's just there's so many people imitating Bob.
Yeah.
A lot of people imitating Peter Tosh or Bunny Wailer. There, there's some. It's like a real bad Elvis impersonation. Like you go to Vegas and you go like, "Hey, there's good Elvis impersonators, but this isn't one of them."
Oh,
And there's a whole bunch of tribute to Bob Marley groups, and like the other Wailers. I work with them too, and when I see their show, it's something that is odd because to see people doing what you did in
Yeah.
1974, and they're
right.
doing it now exactly the way you did it in 74 with the father,
Yeah.
Bob. I don't think that it shouldn't exist. Who am I to say this shouldn't happen? It's just the fact
Right.
it is happening at a grand rapid rate. There's two or three different Whaler bands where people get
Wow.
confused when they want to come see me. They don't know what to expect. And then they come to shows and I'm not there. And then it's just what we're trying to do is twist the cap back on the bottle where it's like, there's no leaks. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. We play some of the catalog, we play some original material, and we
Yeah.
improvise. We jam. That's what we do. We don't go out there and pretend to be Bob Marley. I can't. He told me that he didn't want that before he went on his journey. I
Yep.
spent like 5 months more with him in Germany when he was getting his treatment. And you know what that's like getting chemotherapy and stuff. It's no joke. You're just like spot on. Hey, I got to get over this and I got to get to the next stage of my life. So he said, continue whatever you do. Try to keep the band together. And it wasn't me alone. It was his band. So every individual was to listen to the words of, the leader and follow through. Keep everything together. Keep recording. Keep touring together. But as soon as Bob went on his journey, everything got torn apart by, again, you know, racketeering, lawyers, and accountants. Here it goes again. And then it goes, the estate has to sue the musicians that worked with Bob Marley to get their just deserves because there's so many children that deserve what they deserve. So it's either you're going to win or you're going to drastically lose. And unfortunately, the Wailers drastically lost everything that Bob was leaning forward to for us to receive. And when he told me keep the band together and keep playing the music that we produced and recorded, I said, of course. But I thought it was going to, when Bob passed, like 99% of the band was capable of continuing. We just had to find another singer songwriter, not like Bob, but as good as, and we finally have in my incarnation of the original Wailers. Why do I call myself the original Wailers? Because that's the only thing that was in the Library of Congress that I had worked 50 years to represent that I could latch on to because there was some really bad people that was producing the band when Family Man met this female manager, this girl named Jennifer Miller. She destroyed everything that Bob built for the band because she took over, and then she decided that it was going to be her way, how she saw this Rasta-based group that Bob was responsible for. And she had no idea about Rastafari, nor did she like Bob Marley's music. It was all about, it was a cash cow to keep us on the road. So we got tired of that. We wanted, our freedom. We wanted to be able to record and tour and work with agents and artists of our liking. But they just, for maybe 20 years, I had to deal with that nonsense. And I finally broke away from it. But still, we've got problems with administration from those days that we produced all this music. We never got paid for the live albums. Nobody got paid for the live album. But we got a royalty every 6 or 9 months from these crooked lawyers that was working with Bob's manager and Bob. These guys, you can Google their names. Marvin Zolt was Bob's 42nd Street accountant, and David Steinberg was Bob's lawyer. They both got done for racketeering and stealing money from the band.
That's
And
right.
Bob. And then
Whoa.
when they got the hammer, they had to pay back all the money, like maybe 10 million pounds or $10 million, whatever. But they didn't pay it back to the group and Bob, they paid it back to the estate. So the children and Rita Marley got all that money. We didn't get all the money that they were stealing from us for years. And so I had so many accountants come with us David Steinberg was the lawyer who cut all the checks because he would never show us statements of our work. So if you're going to pay me, show me the statement that represents the record that for the sales or the apostrophe S records of this period that are selling that you're paying us for. And he said, either take the money or get out of here. That was the attitude. And we didn't feel like we had any power to get another lawyer, attorney, or another accountant to come in because that would be rocking the boat a little bit too much, And I know, what happens there. You got to pay more money. You're losing.
Exactly.
It's all about who's the strongest guy in the room. So if anything, have, legal counsel, like an incredible accountant and lawyer, and they're like silverback gorillas.
Yes.
There's no compromising. It's like, and so we just didn't have that, and the estate did. And then when Family Man and this girl decided they was going to take over the estate with such an outrageous lawsuit in England, it pinned the Wailers down to, separating. And then a couple of guys passed. They murdered Carlton Barrett.
Yeah.
They murdered him for his royalty. He never signed any agreements, along with a bunch of us. And Tyrone Downie never got his just deserves for the songs he wrote with Bob and all the songs and his arrangements and production. The same for Carlton and Family Man, although Family Man was responsible for everything getting fried. He just, he electrocuted everything. So we had to have all these other subgroups calling themselves the Wailers.
Yeah.
Like his son says that he's the heir apparent to the name Wailers. And he never played with Bob Marley and never suffered one-fifth the tribulation we did trying to get our rights to represent the name Wailers. Because it was Bob Marley and the Wailers, and it was the Waylon Wailers and the Wailers, and then Bob Marley, Peter Tosh and Bunny. And so we had to go through all of that to reach a judgment from a court that denied us all of our rights for the 50 years we've represented this wonderful package of music on behalf of Bob Marley and the Wailers, Island Records, and the whole thing with Scratch. We play all these songs, and we
Exactly.
never got.
If anyone
never
knows this music better, it's you guys that were in the band continuing the legacy. I know last time we talked all about this, learning football.
Yeah.
We're not going to call it soccer, learning football and playing over there, living with his family. And you know how many months it was before you all started recording. You've carried on the legacy, and you know better than anyone what Bob wanted in that, you know, for anyone, there's no other person that can be called the Wailers. The original Wailers are you, Mr. Al Anderson. The legacy you carry on for Bob, not only with your music but for reggae in general, and yourself as a guitarist. You're an amazing person. You have some bloody amazing stories. I will definitely be there on November 20th, front row center in Adelaide to catch you. Shake your hand, my good friend. We better sign out, move you on to the next lot of interviews. Jim, do you have any else you're...
No. This was wonderful.
Last word, shout outs, thank yous are all up to you, my friend, Mr. Al Anderson.
Yeah, God bless all of you. I look forward to seeing you as we come through. We're going to be on our best behavior and play some really nice music for you. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, brother. I got some cool merchandise for you, a nice lid and some cool sweaters.
I'm going to be there, brother. Awesome. Thank you so very much. Cheers.
Oi, you're tuned in to That Aussie Metal Guy, so make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of his sick content. And remember, stay brutal, you legend.